Hello folks! If you're seeing this right now, that means trip number 5 is over. Our New England excursion is finished. No more videos there for the trip. That series is complete. Where are we? Well, if you have followed along to my channel, you would know exactly where we are right now. So, this is the video where I get into and divulge all the little things that you could not see in the videos where we go to the locations. Either my own personal thoughts and reflections, or stories that weren't exactly captured in my videos on location. And before we really begin and dive deep into the content, I will say that if you know where we are, you'll know it's an exciting place. But please don't expect a third video on this place. I'm going here for mostly my own personal sake. So although this place is near and dear to my heart, please don't expect another video from here. I say this because usually I film where my next trip is, and I'm basically at the tail end of my 6th and final trip for the year. That's right, sadly this next trip is going to be the final one, but don't worry, it's a very, very long trip, full of content, full of just jam-packed events and experiences that you will not want to miss. But I'll keep that a secret. This is just me being at that tail end of that trip. But just to go through it all, let's recap this last trip. This was the New England excursion. My goal here was to give you all a perspective on what the American Northeast is like, a region called New England. This is the oldest part of the country, full of colonial history, and it's a region rich in history going from that time up until today. So if you think about it, that's 400 years of culture being developed to bring New England as this distinct regional culture within the US. And that's why I just had to take a visit this year. So in order to arrive in New England, first we had to get to New England. We started this trip at Poughkeepsie, New York. And then we went east across the Hudson River, going into Connecticut, starting in the capital, Hartford, and then going down to a little resort town with a lot of ships, Mystic, Connecticut, a similar town in Rhode Island, well, not a town, a city full of colonial history. Providence was our next destination, a great time there. We skipped Massachusetts because, if you remember, Massachusetts is very hostile towards out-of-state campers, so we gotta skip Massachusetts. Maybe next year, maybe another trip, I don't know. But Massachusetts was not on our list. We went up to New Hampshire. We saw the quiet little town of Keene. We then climbed a mountain, Mount Monadnock. Then we went up to beautiful Maine. We first went to Portland, this bustling tourist city full of lobsters and everything, and then went to the desert of Maine in Freeport. We went up to the mid-coast, seeing the quiet little town of Rockland. And then we went a little bit inland to Augusta, the capital of Maine. We went back west, returning to New Hampshire. We saw the capital city, Concord, and what a day that was with the festival. It's a bit difficult trying to navigate this place. I thought I knew this place like the back of my hand. Turns out there's a lot more construction and twists and turns in the roads than I thought. Oh well, going back to the narrative, we then went to Canterbury and really saw the old New England at its core. Then we went into Vermont and saw a little bit of what Vermont culture is, sort of being the offbeat state within New England, but still having a lot of history. And then we finally went out of New England. We finally, after long last, saw the capital of New York, a state we've been to many, many times, Albany. And finally, to end it all off, to put a bow on the trip, we went to a county fair in the heat of summer. Hey, look at this, it's just a peacock walking around or doing something with its body. You can tell this is a special place when there's just animals not afraid of humans, not scampering off, but just doing their own thing. But that was the trip as a whole. Hopefully we got to see as much culture as New England offered there on our 2-week endeavor, and it being one of the most culturally rich regions in the United States, it was a blast. It really was. From the sightseeing, to the food, to the various performances we saw on the way throughout the different towns and cities. You could really get that sense that you were in a special region of America. But it wasn't all great. as one would expect. I think the most important part of travel are, of course, the people. You see, all over the country, I think America is very special because normally you'd have, conversations wherever you go. Whether it was the Midwest with their hospitality or Virginia, where you could have amazing conversations with just about anybody you meet on the street. The country is great when you want to socialize and talk to people and get those worldly experiences from different walks of life. But New England's a bit of a dead zone when it comes to that. I don't know if it's just entrenched within the culture, but the people there aren't really so inclined to talk, and maybe I could have just gotten unlucky with these 2.5 weeks, but aside from the few instances where we did catch people on camera, there weren't many experiences off camera where I was lucky enough to meet people, whether it was a campground or maybe it's just that the entirety of New England doesn't really want to talk. But that put a bit of a limit on my experiences. I was so excited from the whole Midwest trip and getting to see all these experiences, including talking to people and socializing and having those great, deep, meaningful interactions as they went along. None of that really happened in New England. Yeah, now I know why everything looked unfamiliar. I was on the wrong path, a path I've never walked before, but now I'm sort of going on the right path, even though it sort of looks like it's under construction and all. At this point, I also forgot to say, if you hadn't watched these videos in the New England excursion, probably a good idea not to get spoiled by this video and to watch a good portion of them on your own before watching this. Just so you get some context, a bit of a background, so you'll understand what I'm saying. Looks like I spoiled you all, but whatever. I'm sure the people watching this video have already seen some of the videos. That's just my assumption. But another thing I forgot to mention is that at the beginning of the video, I try to start my epilogues out with the central theme. Forgot to do that at the beginning. Oh well, guess the story's all wonky and backwards now. But yeah, the central theme I'm trying to convey is that one's outlook, one's perspective can be all the difference. That's what matters. You could be having a good experience, bad experience, but it's how you view it that makes all the difference. Whether it's a good trip, a bad trip, good life experience, bad life experience. But now that you know the theme, let me explain more about this whole thing. So, I'd be lying if I wasn't saying I was very disappointed in the small number of people I was able to have these interactions with. That is the crucial part of these travels, to meet the people, to get a sense of their life experiences and their background, so you eventually become a more learned and open-minded person. Okay, check my map again. Looks like I'm also going the wrong way, so third time's the charm, hopefully. But yeah, pretty disappointed. That was something I looked really forward to, knowing what the New England people's mindset were all about, just their values, how they live their life, and all that. But that was not happening. Well, I will say this, despite the noise of the tractor behind me. Upper New England is a little bit more friendly than Southern New England. States like Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, well, I didn't go there, but around that area, yeah, no one's gonna talk to you. But maybe New Hampshire and Maine, you might get a few words out of people if you really persist, but nobody's going out of their way to talk to you. I guess that's a better way to put it. In fact, there was one time I was in a campground in Maine, and I wanted to try some local stuff. So I didn't really know exactly what the campground menu had. Some campgrounds actually have pretty fine menus. So I went in, I said hi and all that. Hey, what do you guys recommend? Well, I was trying to decide on the menu. Someone was eating a sandwich, and it looked good. They had fries on the side. It looked like a nice, juicy sandwich. So I asked, hey, what's that? So I expected a response like, oh, it's a sandwich. As if, like, leave me alone, I'm eating. But I actually got a friendly response. He was like, oh, this is a really nice Haddock sandwich. You gotta try it. And it was a nice gesture. It sparked a little conversation about, oh, where are you from? How long have you known this campground? A nice little thing. Nothing about, hey, this is my life, but just a little superficial talk, which I liked after days of not having anyone to talk to. And then I still didn't know what I wanted to order, so he was like, hey, person running the campground cafe, this guy wants this Haddock sandwich. I guess he sort of knew that I was hungry because that's what he did. He basically ordered my Haddock sandwich. Of course I paid, but at that point it was kind of funny because he probably both knew that I was hungry, looking at that sandwich with some pretty desperate eyes, and then also the fact that he made things simple. He just said it for me. I didn't have to think anymore. I just enjoyed that night with my new haddock sandwich, which I hopefully have a picture of. So I guess that's my one story of friendly people in New England. And I hate to stereotype the New Englanders. I'm sure there are many, many friendly people in that region. I guess it's just overcast by all the rather unfriendly people and people who just want to do their own thing, who don't want to talk. But that's New England, I guess. Other than that, the region was just so fun. Now here's where I come to the central theme about all circumstances are really what you make of it. Your outlook, your perspective can make all the difference. Luckily, I had learned from my previous travels that you have to make the most of your time. You only have one trip in that region. Sure, you could go back, but it wouldn't really be the same. This is your first impression in a region. You want to make it count. So my mindset during that trip was, sure, it may not be fun having to not talk to other people throughout the duration of the trip, but it was my trip. Now, if it weren't under construction, this thing behind me, I would really love to go inside and see that, but I guess I'll leave the construction workers to their work. But it is such a beautiful view from here. You can see all these mountains and the beautiful garden and the fountains and the temple inside. Anyway, ultimately, it was up to me to decide the fate of my trip. If I just thought, oh, I wish I could talk to people, I wish I could talk to people, well, that wouldn't be no fun. So I had to make the most of it and just say, you know what, there are other good things going on during this trip. For one, for the first time ever on one of my trips, I got everything I wanted to do on these day-to-day itineraries from place to place. Everything I wanted to do, I did. And I thought, oh, wouldn't I need to take a rest day every once in a while? But I chose not to. I just did like 10 or 11 or 12 or how many locations it was, all in succession. I had to do something every day, and that productivity really was useful for having a good mindset. If you always have something to do, then your mind isn't idle. You're not gonna have a time where you're thinking, this is not fun. No, you're always doing something, and therefore, you're not thinking about the bad stuff. You're thinking about, okay, I gotta do this. Wow, I'm seeing this thing. I'm trying this food. I'm listening to this type of music. That type of thing. And it really does wonders to the outlook of a trip. Good thing I could say that came from my outlook was I was open to new experiences at the beginning and the end of this trip. Poughkeepsie, New York, that was not on the list. I was gonna head straight to Connecticut first. But then I decided, I heard about some things going on in Poughkeepsie with the Vassar College and wanted to check that out. And at the very end, I only knew about the county fair as soon as I made the call to that last campground. They said, oh yeah, are you gonna be here at this date? Or, oh yeah, there's this county fair that's going on all week. And so I opted to join, and despite getting sick off of fair food, I love that experience. And as you probably know, I originally wanted to go to Massachusetts and visit some iconic places in the state like Boston or Gloucester or maybe even Plymouth, that colonial area. It just didn't work with the scheduling of campgrounds and how certain campgrounds in Massachusetts are just not accommodative. So I had to make all these adaptations to the itinerary. And I could have said, you know what, I give up, I'm done with the trip. But keeping an open mind and having that positive outlook, like, well, I can't do this, but maybe doing this will lead to some great experiences. I kept my head up, and it turned out to be a great trip that almost just was scrapped. That's right, this New England trip was almost scrapped. There wasn't going to be an excursion to New England. Instead, there was going to be something else that I'm not going to get into because that would be spoiling, and that wouldn't be fun. And that's really one of the things you can learn from travel. You can really learn how to overcome obstacles. In this case, it was the obstacle about how do you make the most of your trip, and then also learning how to best schedule a trip and overcome obstacles with setting up an itinerary. Wait a minute, how do I get out of here? And it's a beautiful display, but I want to go back. I don't know where to go. How's it going, cows? Just moving along? They're not amused with my jokes. That was awful. Sometimes life is tough. It just doesn't accommodate you at all. Sometimes you feel like you're stuck in certain circumstances. I know I was in this trip across New England. Not only was scheduling every little thing a lot more difficult than other regions, but then once I got through these regions, people just wouldn't really talk. But I swear, it's such a cliche, and as a natural skeptic of all things, I hate using the term, oh, just think positive in life. That just comes from a way too optimistic point of view, you know? But it's honestly kind of true. I have to admit it. Sometimes thinking positive, and only the positive, and just filtering out the negative things can really impact one's satisfaction. It's really all about the perspective. And maybe it applies to you. Maybe it applies to other aspects of life, not just travel. It's one thing to think of all the negative things, and that can really bog you down and make life just stink. But it's also another thing when you can think about what is going right for you. Sure, many things may be going wrong, and you may be given many inconveniences, but surely, if you think in the right lens, you can always come up with things that maybe you're lucky to have, or things are going in your direction. I'm not trying to give you just this head in the clouds advice of, oh, just be positive and optimistic and everything's gonna be all right. I'm not like that. So what I can say is there's something to be said about optimism while still being realistic about things. So maybe things are not going great, but if you think about the little things you do have, maybe you can focus on that, and that may bring you a little bit of joy to just constantly remind yourself of the things that are going for you, that maybe not everybody has, or things that you're just thankful you have in general. Whether it's travel or just general life, nobody's gonna have everything going for them. I could be wrong, but neither will anybody have everything going against them. Given the right lens and perspective, there are things going for you, and there are things that aren't going for you. That's just something we have to accept as people, as humans. You can't control everything, so the best you can do is have the right outlook and perspective. Because with that, perhaps may come a rise in your satisfaction. Given the theme, that's something I have come to learn, especially so in this trip. So there you have it, another coverage project epilogue, number 5 for the New England excursion. Was a great trip, and once again, we learned something. Try to be transparent and open with you about the struggles I have as a person, because I don't know everything. I don't know many things, nor should I be looked at as a role model. I'm just a normal person going through these life experiences, so maybe it does help, in addition to the travel, getting that fun entertainment and content, to also get a bit of real life with it. So there you have it, coming to you from a location that I will not disclose right now. But if you've seen the videos, you will know exactly where we are, as said in the beginning. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location.